All right, good evening. It is Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. This is the Community and Economic Development Council meeting, the first one for 2025. I think what we'll do is begin with introductions so that way everybody can know each other and then people online will know who is here. So I'm Brian Baylor, the administrator for the Village of Hannah City. Introduce yourself and your title or what position you have on the board or who you represent from the community, or if you're at large or whatever. So let's start with Sarah.
I'm Sarah Cooper. I'm the utility clerk.
I'm Zach Sidek. I'm the Community and Economic Development Trustee for the board.
I'm Trace Evans. I'm the president of the Hannah City Park District.
Danny Pearson. I'm at large.
Jeannie Thomas, representing the Farmington Area Public Library District.
Chris Mathke, representing Logan Tivoli Fire.
Zach Chatterton, Farmington Schools.
All right. We don't have any guests, so we do not need to recognize any of them. Before we get into the minutes, I guess I just wanted to ask the question. I don't know if you guys have been following along several weeks ago in Hannah City happenings, but there was a lot of discussion and debate about the economic development programs and what they were and what they weren't. There seemed to be a lot of misinformation out there. And at the last couple of board meetings ago, I kind of gave a history and a little bit of background on how we got to where we got. And I guess I'm wondering two things. One, would that be helpful here so that you guys kind of had the same understanding? Or you're all good and you're not running into people who are asking you questions that you can't answer? And or do you have any questions as a result of seeing that stuff online that would be helpful that if we addressed? So those are my two questions for you.
I mean, I think how much of a background?
Take me less than 10 minutes.
I would be fine with it, but I'll leave that up to everybody else.
Yeah, I know, Chris, it's your first meeting, and okay. So I wasn't here when it all started, but I've gotten very educated on economic development programs and how they start, and I know Zach's got a lot of background as well. So if there's anything that I missed, you can throw in as well. But it was probably 6 to 7 years ago, this board, the Village Board of Hannah City, made the decision and voted to start two economic development districts or programs. One is a TIF district, Tax Increment Finance District, and the other is a Business Development District, BDD. So one's TIF, one's BDD. The differences are, well, let's back up. When they did that, they hired a company out of Bloomington called Jacob & Klein in the Economic Development Group. And they use the statutes that are at the state and federal level to come in and draw a map of within your town which areas meet the requirements for either TIF or Business Development District needs. And those criteria are things like is there blight? Is there an opportunity to develop an area further that needs to be developed? There has to be some continuity. So you can't be this house, not this house, but this house. There has to be kind of some connectivity to how everything comes together. Anyway, so they went through that whole process, and then they came back to our village board and they said, here's the map for TIF and here's the map for the Business Development District. And while there's some similarities, they're not exactly the same. There is some overlap. And the board voted to adopt both maps. The programs last, I think, for 22 years. Is that right? 22 years that they're in existence. We're in year 3-ish, 4-ish?
I think technically three
in Hannah City. And then the way they're funded is different. So TIF, Tax Increment Finance District, is funded by the incremental tax rate going up. So if you have a property that's in the TIF district and year one your taxes were $1,000, and year two after the TIF was in place your taxes went to $1,100, your property tax is going to stay right at about $1,000, and then that 100 is going to be moved over into the TIF. So on your taxes you're going to see that your property tax staying relatively flat, but your TIF is going up. And this is where a lot of people get confused because they think they're paying something new for the TIF district, which they're not. It's just the money's being shifted from one bucket to another. Okay. The other thing to keep in mind is the money that's getting shifted over per our agreement is 80% of the residential tax that gets moved over into TIF we return to the other taxing bodies. Okay? So 80% of the residential money that's moved into TIF ultimately gets given back to the park district, to the library district, to the fire department, and so forth. 20% of that stays in the village TIF, and then 100% of the commercial TIF money stays in. Okay? But a lot of people get confused because they think if we got rid of the TIF, then the TIF taxes would go away and their other taxes would stay at the level they are, and that's not true. What would happen is the TIF dollars would just go back over into the property tax category. That makes sense? Okay. On the business development district, it's funded differently. It's funded through 1% of the sales tax. So if you go to Gill's and buy a chicken dinner, you're going to pay a 2% sales tax there. 1% goes to sales tax, which comes to the village. 1% goes into the business development district. So that's how that gets funded. So if you look at those two models, obviously the business development district is going to get funded quickly because every year you're getting 1% of all the retail sales in town. Okay. On the TIF side, what's happening is every year the property taxes go up, 80% is given back, so it takes longer to build money on the TIF side because the process takes longer. So this is where another part of the confusion comes in, is people say, well, my neighbors what happens is their neighbors in the TIF district, and they're in the TIF district, their neighbors in the business development district, and they see their neighbor getting a grant for BDD, but they're not eligible for TIF grants yet because we haven't had enough money in the TIF to have a grant program. That's going to change to this point. And so they think they're paying into the TIF, and then that money's going to their neighbor, right? And they're not eligible for anything. And the reality is, if you're in the TIF district and you're paying it and part of your taxes is going into the TIF, you're the only people that are eligible to have TIF dollars paid out, right? And if you're in the BDD, and you're only eligible for BDD. And if you're in both, you're eligible for both, okay? Now, one of the things that's forgotten is the reason you put the programs together in the first place is so that you can attract development. So what you want is new businesses and or new residential development to take place. And when you have those districts in place, what you can do, let's take the coffee can, is the coffee can come in and say, they fill out an application, a developer application, and they say, we're going to build a building, and that building is going to be worth approximately $1 million, and we're going to sell roughly $500,000 worth of stuff a year. So what that means is that $1 million building is now going to generate new tax dollars that wasn't generated before, and it's also going to generate new retail sales that wasn't generated before. And so the developer agreements are such where we say to people, okay, well, if you do your business here, we'll give you back 50% of the property tax you generate for 5 years. And if you do your business here, we'll give you back 50% of your business development district tax for 5 years. So really, when you're a developer, all you're getting is a percentage of what you're creating back. You follow what I'm saying? And so that, again, point of confusion, people think, well, we're writing checks out, right, to those places. And that's not the way the programs are designed to work. They're designed to give a percentage back. So the next thing that happens is Gil says, well, wait a minute. I've been here for X number of years. I'm not eligible unless I'm going to expand for a developer agreement, either a TIF or BDD developer agreement. So then what we say is, okay, well, that's why we're going to do grant programs. So we can offer you a commercial grant of $15,000 a year, Gills, to do XYZ or whatever business in town. That's why we do it for homes, because if a developer comes in and says, I'm going to build a new house or I'm going to build 10 new houses, and we offer them a deal, you have other homeowners that go, wait a minute, I've lived here for X number of years. So the grants are in part to help make the town look nicer, but also to reward the people that have been here. Okay, I'm done. How'd I do?
You did a really good job.
Okay.
And I would only add that at our infancy, and I'll talk about the TIF, is we really need to focus on the blight first, and then the grant applications for those that are currently paying taxes and are good community members, because the spirit of TIF is to revitalize blight regions. So in my mind, I always say that's our first and foremost on the
That's a
TIF
good
side
point.
of things. Then we want to support those current residents that are good citizens paying their property taxes and are helping our community. But our first, the whole spirit of it is blighted community to get rejuvenate those areas to get the real estate taxes going again. So
I think that's
that's
well
the
said.
first spirit. Then further down, all those people that are seeing that tax bill and the money going to the TIF, I always remind them our purpose is to raise all within our community, and our first priority is the blighted portions of it, and then we look at the grant applications as they come in. Yeah, and I don't have anything to add on the business because I think I love the philosophy here is we are definitely looking to bring new tax dollars in, sales tax dollars in, new businesses in, but we are always very conscientious of our steadfast businesses in town.
Anybody else have any questions or points of clarification?
So, just for clarification's sake, the intent of the TIF specifically isn't just to focus on the blighted, but in theory it'll snowball, right? So if you increase the appeal of the blighted areas, then the overall property values are going to increase, which would in turn increase taxes, which would then set aside more funds for the TIF to do more stuff, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then once the TIF deals like age out, so let's say we do a 5-year deal with a business, then from that point forward, 100% of the sales tax and the BD tax and the TIF tax all comes to the village. You follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So we're giving back a portion to incentivize a developer to come do something here. But eventually 100% of that's going to be achieved.
Okay.
You had something you were going to say? No, I thought. Zach, I thought you looked like you were going to.
Nope.
And to be honest with you, I can't go into details at this point because of the people we're talking to. They don't really want to know. But we're in the process right now of talking with 3 developers for various projects in town. And obviously, eventually, those will need to come before this group. But at this point, they're just asking questions and sniffing around and seeing what we have and what we don't have. So it is having its intended purpose. Now, whether or not we land any of those planes is a different question, right? But the fact that they know that we have economic development programs is what, in part, raised their eyebrows and said maybe that's someplace where I want to invest. Okay. You have 3 different packets of information. The first one is, it's got the agenda, and that'll be kind of the background information that we're going to go through. And then you've got 2 stacks of data that have a kind of a spreadsheet on the front of it. One are the residential grants, and the other are the commercial grants. And we'll do those at the end. So we are to the point of approving our last meeting minutes, which is actually, we were just laughing, was 1 year ago today that we met the last time, May 28th of 2024. So I would entertain a motion, after you've read the minutes, to approve or modify the minutes as submitted or modified.
I won't cry if you don't.
You're the guy who makes all the modifications of the board meeting. What do you think? They look okay? Okay, I know it's been a year ago, so somebody want to make a motion to?
I'll motion to accept them.
We've got a motion to approve the minutes as submitted by Pearson.
I'll second.
Second by Thomas. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, the next thing in your deck that you're going to want to look at is this thing that has the Village of Hannah City logo on it. I basically wanted to review where our financials ended last year. So if you remember, our fiscal year runs May 1st through April 30th. The village fiscal year runs it. So we just finished our fiscal year. So this is the full year report for TIF and BDD. So the first slide, you can see the far left column is we budgeted $186,048. That's what we budgeted and what we thought we would get in income. We actually got $185,699, so we were only $349 off. That's pretty good. On the expense, we budgeted $129,566 worth of expenses, and that was a positive variance of $56,482. We actually had expenses that were higher of $162,618, so they were $33,000 higher, and I'll cover what those were. I've got a slide on that in a minute, why we went over. So we ended the year with actually $23,000 positive versus a budget of $56,000. And that's because we had 2 unbudgeted projects, which I'll talk about in a second. The third slide is in year-to-date BDD. So we budgeted income of $135,500, expenses of $126,882. We thought we'd be positive by $8,618. We were actually positive. Our income was higher than expected, $144,148. So it was higher by $8,600. Our expenses were lower than what we thought. They were at $111,428. So $15,000 lower. So we ended the year with at $32,000 surplus rather than a budget of $8,618. All right, the next slide, then I've kind of got an explanation. So TIF was positive by $23,081. Income was on budget. Expenses were worse than that budget, and that's because we had 2 unbudgeted projects. If you remember right, we approved doing some work for DN on Auto Body. They could have gotten a grant to redo their entire parking lot. They did not. They did the work themselves, spent, I don't know, $20-some thousand, and they were just asking for some support to blacktop the connection between the driveway and the road, and we approved and spent about $5,000 on that. And then also we talked about the 116 sidewalk project that would run from Pekin Lane down to the end of Casey's and kind of wrap around, and it doesn't cross over the street McAllister into Dollar General, but it dumps out at the road so you could just go right across. And so we spent $26,000 of engineering costs on that project. Then on the BDD side, we were positive $32,720. Our income was better than budget. Sales tax actually was higher this year than what we expected, so that's partly what drove that. The other thing we're doing is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Illinois funds, but Illinois funds is a place municipalities can take their excess cash and just rather having it sit in a bank for making a dollar or 1% or 1.5%, we can put it into Illinois funds where it draws somewhere between 4.5%, 4.6%, something like that. So every month we're taking any surplus money we have, putting it into the Illinois funds, which is driving some additional income for each of the categories, including TIF and BDD. And our expenses were better than budget because we had budgeted $10,000 for village redevelopment, and we didn't do any village projects. Finally, then, if you look at cash, and this will illustrate what I was talking about before in terms of the ability to build up cash. So I use checking savings, even though it's really an operating account, and then the Illinois funds, but the board understands checking and savings. But we had finished the year with about $16,000 in the TIF checking account, $31,000 in the business development district. And keep in mind, we're trying to keep those as low as possible and move as much into Illinois funds so we're getting as much interest as possible. On the savings side, we've got $31,000 and some change in TIF and $245,000 in the BDD fund. And then in total, we've got almost $48,000 in TIF and almost $277,000 in the business development district. Last year we did on the grant program side, we spent $75,000 on commercial grants and $25,000 on residential grants out of BDD. Any questions on that? All right, the next thing I've got then is a spreadsheet showing what we've got in our budget for this year, 2025. So beginning May 1 running through April 30, 2026. The first one I'd ask you to look at is TIF. You can see it in the upper left-hand corner. It says 20, it's account Fund 20 TIF. And at the top part, you can see revenues. So you see we budgeted $189,000 worth of property tax income. We've got interest income that we're expecting from Illinois funds of around $2,500. And so the total income for the year we're looking at for TIF would be about $191,500. Then if you go down on the expense side, I don't know why I didn't. There should be an audit. That audit number shouldn't be 0. That should be the same number as it was last year. So about 2466. I got to change that. Let me make a note. Sorry. Basically, every year the TIF has to be audited, just like their other financials. So we have an auditor that comes in and audits the financials. If you go down and look at developer reimbursement, I have a budget for $9,000. That's for the coffee can. The coffee can, just to give you an update, is for sale or lease. That their agreement ends once either of those two things happen. Either they sell the property or they lease the property. So I have a question there, a note there that says, is it going to be needed? In other words, are we going to have a new developer in there, somebody that buys the property wants to do something with it, we have a new agreement with? Or is there going to be some residual stuff that we're going to owe the coffee can based upon their agreement? So that's all kind of up in the air, but I put some money in there just in case. But I don't think we're going to need that full amount. Then at the next one down, you see the distribution number. I budgeted $106,111. Remember when I talked about the fact that 80% of the residential TIF money gets redistributed back? That's what that represents. So of the 189, roughly 106 goes back to the other taxing bodies. Follow what I'm saying? Okay. The next side down, administration fees, that's working with Jacob and Klein and the Economic Development Group throughout the year on the regulatory things that we have to do, but also if we're putting together estimates for developers or whatever, they help us with all of that. I put down, you can see, I put $50,000 in village redevelopment. This is just a placeholder. The sidewalk project is intended to cost roughly $150,000 with a $25,000 contingency. There's $150,000 in the BDD budget, which you'll see in a second, but I put the contingency here in TIF. And then I also have an earmark for the Park District of $25,000 because we've been having some conversations on helping them with some things, and whether or not that comes to fruition or not, or would be approved or not. But those are the things I knew about, so that's why I earmarked those dollars there. You see the note on the DNN project, that's what we spent that $4,500 there last year. I just made a note so I knew what that was. So we have a budgeted income of $191,500 and expenses of $181,611. I need to check on the audit, so that might actually be a couple $1,000s higher. So 9,889 would be our surplus for the year. But just like everybody else in that 106 number, the village gets back 80% of the residential as well. So that would be 11,565 would be our portion of that gets added back in. So our net income from the year would be 21,454 added to the cash that we have. So if everything works out perfectly like on this, which it won't, we'd end the year with roughly $70,000 of money left over. And one of the things I want to talk about tonight, I've got it later in the agenda, but I think we're to the point now where we can have a discussion about whether or not we want to do a grant program for the TIF district. And whether or not we want to earmark any dollars for next year's budget, not this year's budget, but as we roll into 2026, in order to have the people that are in the TIF district see some benefit to the programs. Any questions on the budget for TIF? Okay, I think all this is important so you can understand when we get into the grants. But if you look at the BDD, that'd be the next one, the 30. Fund 30 BDD, so I've got sales tax projection of $140,000 for the year. The interest income, that's Illinois funds of $7,500, so the revenue totals of $147,500. Then on the expense side, again, it's a lot the same. We have the auditor, we have the developer reimbursement, again, that's coffee cans, so I'm not sure it's needed. We have the administrative fees, $5,000. Right now, I've budgeted the $75,000 for the commercial grants and $25,000 for the residential grants. Once we get into it, you're going to see that we have way more grant applications for residential than $25,000, but we're way low on the commercial, and there's a way we can reconcile that if you guys want to. On the village redevelopment side, I put in $150,000 for the sidewalk project. We can talk about that next. So that would be a total of $259,000. So we would have a negative net income. We'd have an income of $147,500, expenses of $259,000. So we would lose $111,500 for the year, but we've got $276,000 in cash. So we would be using a portion of that cash that's sitting on the sidelines, and we'd finish the year with a roughly $165,000 as our new cash balance. So that's what this fiscal year budget looks like. Speaking of the sidewalk project, we had remotely...
Just real quick.
Yeah.
Why is the business development yielding substantially more on its interest than what the TIF is?
It's got a higher balance. So if you look at the cash balance,
Yeah, but it's still bringing in like 3%, right?
it's actually higher than that.
Yeah, but the
But the
TIF's only
cash-
bringing in like 1.5, right?
No, because part of it is if you go back to
Does it have to do with the amount of it's in like fund with the higher interest rate?
correct. So the interest rate's the same, but if you look at the cash balances as of right now in the Illinois funds, TIF has 31,000 and BDD has 245,000.
Yeah.
And that varies month to month, right? Because every month we're putting money in, taking money out, depending on what's being spent. We're trying to maximize it throughout the year. So the interest rate's the same, but the reason the dollar amount is higher is because BDD has a larger amount of cash in that fund for a longer period of time during the year. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Like how many transactions are coming out of this monthly? Maybe a handful?
We've got a visitor. Ron Gully. Hey, Ron, I'm sorry. He's connection body. Hey, Ron, I'm sorry if you've been waiting. I just saw you pop up. So, are you here just to listen, or did you have something you wanted to? Ron? Ron? Maybe it's not Ron Gully. Hello? Okay. Did you have another question, or were we good?
No, I was getting us off track. We can get.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right. So one of the things that I would like us to vote on tonight is you've got a picture in here of last year we had kind of a remote, if you will, discussion about the engineering side of things, and you all were in support of us spending some TIF dollars to help us do the engineering. So we're getting to the place now where we've got everything submitted to IDOT. Hey, is this Ron Gully? Hello, guest at CEDC Meeting. Can you identify yourself?
Did you ever get the audio thing?
I'm trying. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Oh, there you
Yeah. Is this Ron Gully or someone else?
No, it's Ron Gully.
Okay, Ron, did you have something specific or are you just listening?
I didn't. I just never been to one of your meetings, so I wanted to listen.
No problem. Glad you're here. Okay, so you can see this is an overhead view of the far right road is Pekin Lane. So you can see they're going to redo the area on the, I guess, east side of Pekin Lane and then come across and run the sidewalk all the way down and have it wrap around. And I think it's changed a little bit to where it kind of actually even dumps into the parking lot of Casey's. This was one of the projects was identified when the original work was done that people wanted to have a chance to be able to get safely down to Dollar General and to Casey's, and either with their golf carts or bikes or what have you. And so we're waiting. We've got everything submitted. All the engineering's done. We have everything submitted to IDOT, and we're waiting for IDOT to either give us the thumbs up or thumbs down. And assuming they do, and assuming you guys want to make a recommendation to move forward with the sidewalk to the board, or maybe you want to say, no, we're not believers. Either way is fine. Whatever you guys think makes sense. But
How wide's the sidewalk?
it is 6 feet.
Okay, I see that already.
So one of the part of the logic was with even using a portion of the TIP dollars. Again, the construction side of it will mostly be paid out of BDD. But one of the things we wanted to do was a program that, or some side of work that had greater benefit than just the business owner or the homeowner, that the community in large might get some benefit out of it. So that was one of the logic behind moving this project forward. So thoughts, questions, comments?
I'm assuming that the business owners down there are appreciative and welcome.
Yeah, we've had conversations. The car wash was in love with it because they're tired of people coming through their thing. We had a long conversation with Casey's corporate, and they changed some things as to how it was actually designed and whatever. But they're good, and it doesn't really impact Dollar General other than it's going to make it easier for people to get down there. We did look at crossing across to Dollar General. Across McAllister. The problem was it created a whole new set of rules as to where, like, the stop sign and everything needed to be relative to the entrances to both of Casey's and Dollar General, and those might have had to been moved, and the cost just was getting bigger and bigger, and nobody wanted any of that, so they just felt like if we get them to Casey's, then they do have to cross McAllister, but that's not a terribly busy road. So what I'd like to be able to do is we've got a meeting next Tuesday, and I'd like to be able to say to the board, either you guys or this is a project that you would recommend that we move forward or not recommend that we move forward. So if you're for it, I would entertain a motion to recommend to the village board that this project move forward.
Emphatically make the motion and appreciate your stewardship on this, because this was one of our key projects. Once we figured out that the lighting project was a little over our skis.
This has some really strong advocates. Yep. So I have a motion from Chatterton. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Okay. This one I think I'll roll call. If that's okay. So Zach Sidek.
Yes.
Trace Evans.
Yes.
Danny Pearson.
Yes.
Jeannie Thomas.
Yes.
Chris Matthew.
Yes.
Zach Chatterton.
Yes.
All right, so it is approved, and we'll make the recommendation to the board. And for what it's worth, this is a project that probably wouldn't be on the funding list right now because of the basic infrastructure that needs to be done. So the general dollars are going to line sewers and new roads and alleys, and we've got another probably 3 years of basic infrastructure needs that have to be done before we can then stretch out how much capital we set aside every year and then create new dollars for projects like this. So if we didn't have a TIF and BDD, we would not be doing this project. So if you're out there and people are complaining about the economic development, maybe they don't like this project too, so it's always going to be something maybe to complain about. Anyway, good stuff. Thank you. All right, so we've gone through the budgets. We've gone through everything else. Okay, so now we are to the grant applications. I'm going to propose a process. If you guys don't like it, tell me, and we can do something different. But basically what you have is the long list is the residential projects, and then the short list is the commercial projects. One thing to note is if you add up the 75% of the projects for the residential, it adds up to $42,447.65. We have a budget of $25,000. Okay, but if you go over onto the commercial side and look at the 75% over there, it adds up to $26,663. We have $75,000. So, when we're done going through the projects, if you guys are recommending enough residential projects that the dollar amount is going to exceed $25,000, we can have a vote to reallocate a portion of the commercial dollars to cover the residential dollars if you guys want to do that. So my point is, you can go through the residential grants and you can say, nope, we're going to stick to our $25,000 and we're going to cut the pants to fit the boy and only have projects that are worth $25,000. Or you can go through and say, we like these 5 or 6 or 7 and they add up to $30,000 and we want to move $5,000 from commercial over. Make sense? All right, so let's start with residential.
Real quick.
Yeah.
When does the clock start for when they have to have the work done on the residential projects?
So anything you guys recommend tonight will be voted at the board meeting next week. If they're approved at that meeting, then Sarah and I will be communicating with those that are approved. We will have what we call a kickoff meeting, a grant kickoff meeting, where we have a representative from everybody come in, and we will walk them through the whole process, all the information we need from them, all that kind of stuff. And then at that point, we'll tell them, you can go get the work done, and you have until, once you start the work, you have 6 months to get it done. And if it's not done by the end of April of 2026, then the money's, you don't get it. It rolls over to the next year.
So they start the clock on the 6 months from when
They start the clock after the kickoff meeting. They'll start the clock once they call us and say,
And they do need the building permit too. It's
correct.
usually
So when we have the
building
kickoff
permit
meeting, we
and
have them
that's
fill out the building permit, give us their tax information. There's a bunch of information that they have to turn in. Once they turn that in and the building permit is approved, then we tell them, you tell us when you're going to call your contractor and start the work. We start our, I don't know why they have that rule, but there's a 6 month rule from the time.
And the only reason I bring it up is because we went through that sticky wicket in Farmington when people were having difficulties getting the contractors in, and they were exceeding that timeline, and they were asking for leniency.
Yeah.
And Klein advised us not to show that leniency even in those hardship cases.
So what we tell them is, don't tell us that your clock's starting. Don't.
Yeah.
Until you know you can have it done within 6 months. So what we do is we have the kickoff meeting, and once their permit is approved, they call us and say the contractor's going to be here on such and such date, and then we start their clock and off we go.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Or April 30th.
And they know if they don't get it done by April 30th next year, then they're not getting the money.
Yeah.
Yep. And all that's covered in the kickoff meeting.
Okay.
But most of them, what they do is most of them already have them lined up, and within probably 80% of them within a month are like, okay, my contractor's going to be here on this date, so start my clock on that date, and then we go. Yeah.
I just know when those things are weather sensitive, like concrete and roofing and things, it was just a sticky wicket when these people were counting on.
And we make sure we
grants.
tell them, make sure your contractor knows from the time they say they're going to do it, they've got 6 months to get it done.
That was like the car wash, I think, kept getting delayed, so they just turned in their permit later once they knew they were really going to be able to get out there. That kind of helped.
The other thing we had last year, some of them didn't want to actually do the work until the new calendar year because they wanted to cut it on that year's taxes, and so we've worked with people on that. But we've also made them understand that your window's a lot smaller. If you don't get it done by April 30th, you're not going to get the money. So.
But that was BDD on the car wash, right?
It is.
Yeah. There's more lenience on that one. Is it better than the TIF?
I don't know. We have never done any TIF grants.
Yeah.
We've done TIF developer agreements, but no TIF grants. Yeah. Okay, so if you look at it, we had 9 grant applications. You'll see one in red This was one of the ones that was talked about a lot online. This was a situation where the individual is in the TIF district but not in the business development district, and there was some confusion there, and that's what there was some hurt feelings over that. But so that 25R8 is not available. So you have 25R1 through 25R9. The other piece of information, as before we get started, is 25R5, the Peter Kaufman project. This is a second-year grant applicant. So why is that important? Well, normally what we say is if we're running out of funds and all things being equal, we're going to give the grant to somebody who's not received a grant before. It doesn't mean that they can't receive a grant, because we've given multiple grants to multiple people. But that's the only one that is a second-time applicant is Peter Kaufman. So I guess in our situation, it would be if we're going to exceed the $25,000, do we want to exceed it for that project as well? Or do we want to not do that? And again, that's whatever recommendation you guys want to make. All right, I think what we'll do is let's go through each of these. We'll talk about them. You can make a note on it as to whether you're a yes, no, or maybe, and then we'll just go to the next one, and then once we're done, we can kind of talk about all of them. Does that make sense? The one thing, just backing up, the one thing we did change this year is we had all the applications due by a certain date, because what we found last year is we'd have other good applications come in later, but we'd already allocated the money. So we just told everybody this year, get it in. That way you'll get reviewed with everybody else and so forth. Your job is to say, which one do you think is the greatest benefit to the village in terms of, and meets the needs or meets the goals of what it is we're trying to do, blight, those types of things, improving that. And then all things being equal, if somebody's a second applicant, our rule is that we would give money to somebody new rather than a repeat, all things being equal. Okay.
And just want to affirm that if everyone's current on their property tax payments and such. Right?
Correct. So the way our process works is when we get the applications in, Sarah makes sure they're complete. Then we send them to Jacob and Klein, a lady by the name of Gwen Crawford, reviews them to make sure that all that stuff is done, and then gives us the thumbs up that they're ready to come to the Community and Economic Development Council. We also have a fail-safe, because when they come in on the kickoff meeting, we affirm that they've paid their taxes and we ask for their tax information at that time as well. Okay, so the first one is 25R1. Looks like the estimated project cost is $10,000, roughly. It's a new roof. All of these should have 2 quotes. That was one other thing we changed. We told them we wouldn't bring it to this meeting if you didn't already have 2 quotes. I don't know what it looks like it's a metal roof. This person lives on 227 North 3rd Street. Looks like one quote is for metal, $97.90, and one quote is for shingles. They have a preference to go with Yoder, but both of them would be within the...
Yeah, the second quote is just the 3 pages because they have the gutter separate and the total on a separate page. That makes a difference looking at it.
The other thing that Gwen does is make sure that the project itself qualifies under the statutes that say what can we spend money on and not spend money on. The second project is 126 North Pekin, Denler. Estimated cost of $91.25. What are they doing? Is this roofing as well?
I believe so. We had a yeah.
Yeah, it's roofing as well. I'm just gonna keep rolling unless you guys have questions. The third one I think is also a roof. These folks, these are the people that own the pool place, I think.
DNO.
Yeah. So they've got a pretty sizable project. They're replacing the roof, 25 grand. So they would just be getting the max. They'd only be getting 5,000, but I guess every little bit helps. 27,520 or 32,400 of it. The next one is the Peter Kaufman project. Again, this is somebody who's applied before. Do you remember what we did for them last time? Was it roof?
Landscaping, I think. Had the tree removal.
And some other stuff. So they're going to remove and replace the concrete driveway. They've got a picture in there, $6,200. The next one is Nicole Sweet. She applied last year, but she got her application. She was in late, and we already had money. It had already been allocated, so she didn't get any money last year. So I told her to reapply this year. But she's got a side deck and a railing. Just some general repair work, care and feeding on the outside of her home.
She didn't provide any pictures. I just want to confirm because it's the back garage page that qualifies.
It does.
Okay.
I don't know. I think we had pictures last year, if I remember that.
I think some people include them and some don't.
I remember, it's a good question, because I remember last year we had the same question, and we asked Glenn.
The building permits we do for some of them. We either ask for a plan or a picture.
Yeah, his point was it's not necessarily visible from the front, so is it considered beautification? And I know we asked the question last year, and we got approval last year for the projects. The next one's an interesting one. The fire department is involved in this one. This is the home next to the fire department, and there's a giant tree between the fire department and this home, and it is, I guess, dying and dropping. And my understanding is that from David that the fire department is going to help, because the grant doesn't cover the full cost of taking the tree out. If I remember right.
I think when I put the cost down, I did put the highest bid she had free, but I know she really wants to go with Buzzkirk that was a little bit less.
How much is it?
$4,700.
Okay, so she would be, her 75% would be lower, but I know David told me that Logan Travola was going to help with the difference between whatever the quote was, because they want the tree down bad enough. They don't want it to fall on the fire department. We'll probably have to go back through. Why don't you go through and look at the dollar amounts on the 75% and make sure we've got the right numbers for all of them on the lowest, or on the quote that either on the quote they want or the lowest.
Yeah, I can go on. I think a few of them I have on the notes.
I just want to make sure that the total adds up to
Sure.
the right amount. Most of them probably won't change, but just go through each of them and look at the quotes, and if they have a preference, put that one down or take the lower one and make sure we have the right number. The next one is a house on 3rd Street. It's a house that has been actually empty for a long time, and we're grateful that they're finally starting to do some work on it. They're already doing some work on the windows and some other things. but they want to do siding. Is that right? Yeah, siding. So they're going to spend almost 30 grand to re-side the house. And there's pictures in there. I don't. Like I said, it's been sitting empty for quite some time. This is one that definitely needs
Light and beautification. This is the number one right here.
Yeah.
So they have curious siding for 40,000, but the next one is
One of them included more than the siding, right?
the other one's
Yeah.
only 4,600.
So the Peoria siding one, she also got quotes for doors and windows out of curiosity for pricing, but it's only the siding. So if you look above the total project price, it'd be the $29,772.
Okay, but
But yeah, it's still a huge
but the
difference.
next one's only 4,600. The next quote,
No material,
it's just the labor.
siding labor, house wrap insulation, furring strips, install siding. So there's no labor or no material price on it.
Yeah, so what's the second quote for that one?
Yeah, I think that's
They're not quoting the same thing.
So we're going to have to go back to Jennifer, and if she just wants the siding, we need a second siding quote.
The first page here is all the material. First numbers from Menards.
Oh, so then they did the materials separate from the labor. All right.
Oh, okay. So what are the
That's
two
what that means.
totals?
It's on the first one.
Approximate supply cost is $2,500,
But I agree, I think you need to check.
and then the labor cost is 46.
So it's still
Well, it's only like 7,100 for David Vera to do it, and it's what 20 grand for 29 grand for Peoria siding and windows.
But David Vera sounds like a good deal.
What you pay for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm all in on the project. I just want to make sure that the paperwork.
Yeah, we'll make a
It's
note. We'll double
consistent.
check with her.
I've never heard of David Vera. I've heard of Peoria siding windows, and that's also to be a big part of your price jumps.
Right.
But if they buy the material themselves from Menards and if they Vera put it up, the price is $3,000 difference. 29 versus
71.
46.
It's like 18,000.
No, it does. It's
Oh, it does
29
more.
because the 46 includes the windows. So the siding only was 29, but we can clarify that. We'll just vote on it with a stipulation if you guys want to do it, that we'll clarify the quote. And then the last one is Logan Kayla Hartsdale, and this is doors, replacing doors.
But the property owner is Kayla Holstrom.
No, I think the
It says
must be-
property owner if different than the applicant.
that's right. Yeah, so then we have to have their approval.
Yeah.
I think that.
Yeah, I believe Kayla Hallstrom is Kayla Archie.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
her
you're
maiden name.
Oh, that okay.
So we did clarify that they do not own the one quote is from Archdale. It is family, but they don't own it, if I understand correctly.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to say that we didn't want to have the family do it, but it's way cheaper, it's $3,100.
Is that a requirement or a stipulation?
What we tell people is, we've had people say, I want a grant, but I want you to pay me to do the work. So we had one business owner said, I'm going to apply for a grant, but I want you to pay me to do the work. And so to avoid even the appearance of impropriety, what we've said is, if those people want to do the work themselves, they can, but we'll only cover material costs. They can bid out the work and have somebody else do it if they want, but there's just room for problems, I think.
But what we can do, we can exceed the 75% on material only. We waive the labor, correct? Is that true?
I don't think so. I think the 75% is the number. So what we tell them is we'll pay for labor if you want to do the work, or we'll pay for materials if you want to do the work yourself. Because we don't want somebody telling us it costs $5,000 to do the labor, but it's really only $3,000 to do the labor or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go through the. While you guys, let me know if there are any in there that you're questioning. You guys start there. Sarah, where are we at on the numbers?
Other than Linda Bear, only two other ones that had a smaller quote. One was Nicole Sweet. So the total project, I didn't do the 70% yet, was the other quote was $2,748. And then Thomas Rasher, the other quote was for $500 plus. It was $9,200.
That wouldn't matter though. It's still
Yeah.
5,000.
Archdale was the last.
Now, was Graffelman lower?
Yeah.
Linda Bear.
Yeah, Linda Bear was lower. Hers was $4,700 for the.
So once you get them all done, add them up and give me a new total. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Take 75% of the number and give me a new total.
Well, while she's doing that, I personally am drawn to 25K4, which is the second application from Peter Kaufman for additional discussion. 25R6, the Linda Bear tree removal, and Jennifer Graffelman at 25R7.
Those are the three that you like.
I thought I'd kind of like to discuss a little bit more.
The 25R4.
On the second application, I have a hard, even though we have a surplus in the business, I have a hard time transferring that over for the 75% grant. I don't know why, I just do. I could do like a little bit less, like 50% rather than 75%. Like if we had everybody's needs met within our budget without transferring over, I think I'd feel differently. But
Let me make sure I understand. So you're saying rather than give them 75%, you would say if we want to do more and stay within the budget, you'd offer them 50% of their project.
If we had enough money to do all of them that we had already budgeted from the TIF, I don't think I'd have
BDD.
From BDD. Yeah. I wouldn't have as much of an issue as if we're borrowing from the business to fully fund it. Okay, I'm not saying I wouldn't. I just
I guess if on the business side, even if all those grants are approved, I guess we could decide if we wanted to open it up and have more grants for the commercial side for the last half of the year, or we could decide to put more money into sidewalks or something else.
Yeah, but I'm not sold and steadfast on that. That was my initial thought on that one.
Okay.
On the 75R6, I think that yes, this is a residential application, but it benefits our entire community in ensuring response time for the fire department. So I feel like that's a higher priority, and if there's any other avenue to help support that beyond the 75%, I would consider it. I'm not saying that we should, but I'm like, well, yes, it benefits her as the homeowner, but really it benefits our whole community because of the proximity it has to the firehouse.
Okay.
In the Graffelman one, it just like to me epitomizes the philosophy of fixing up a blight, and I'd almost want to do more for them because we're talking about a house of maybe $1,000 in property taxes that it's bringing in now. Maybe, I don't know what it is, but we're talking about bringing a home back on the real estate market and making another home available in our community. So I really, really want to continue to support this one, and if we could do more than 75%, or
Yeah, I can
And-
ask the question about whether or not, I don't know for homeowners if we can do a developer agreement like we have with some of the commercial side, which then opens the door for us to do more, but I can ask that question.
like, I'm just saying that it's been vacant for an extended period of time, right?
Yeah.
If somebody's, whether they're going to level it and put a new property on it, or they're going to fully.
I mean, they've already started.
Yeah, well,
They're doing the windows, they put a deck off the back, I mean, the
just
work has
feel like-
begun.
Yeah, like we want to really, really support those things. So those are the only 3 applications that I want to hear. I had thoughts and opinions on. I was wanting to hear others' thoughts and opinions on.
That 25 R5, how visible is that deck and everything she's wanting to fix?
Yeah, the only thing that's really kind of not, if I remember right, was the garage because it's kind of behind the.
Is that the one right on the corner of Farmington Road and Murphy?
I don't think so.
I don't believe so. This is actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's on the corner of Murphy and Jodan.
Okay.
Like it's not. Sorry, let me rephrase. It's one away from the corner of Murphy
I think
and
it's one
Jodan.
away.
Yeah, the only thing that was in question last time was the garage fascia before, but the rest of it is either front or side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I checked this, the approximate supply cost. I didn't think looked right. It's actually $4,000 for the graphene. So it'd be closer to the 8,600.
I think our feeling though, and if I don't want to put words in you guys' mouth, but we'd be willing to support the Peoria with siding and window because we want it done right.
Oh, yeah. I think Chris said, or whoever, you pay for what you get.
Yeah.
With the 25 R3, I looked up this address. This is on the other side of Dollar General, the house that sits way back there. Is that far enough away from the site of view to be considered a beautification project?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question. The only thing I can tell you is it is within the
If they were
business.
doing it at the house up at the road, I could understand that, but the address shows the house that sits way back in the back.
Yeah, the only thing I know is it is within the business development district, but I think it's a fair question as to how visible.
It's a great question.
I mean, the house up the road needs it. I don't know what the roof
I don't know.
back off the road does.
Yeah, like you can see exposed board, right? Yeah, underland.
I guess the question is that did you look up that PIN number or do you just look up?
I just looked at the address.
Yeah, you don't have the PIN number without the real estate.
I can look on GIS to see what GIS is.
Am I thinking correctly in thinking that there were more photos submitted last year with bids that were present? I feel like I had a little bit better idea of some of the applicants. And I mean, I don't know if we necessarily want to discuss about making that a requirement sometime later on, but just to get a general idea of the location and
Yeah,
what we're looking at.
I think that's fair. 1610100
It is the house in the back because it's the entire cornfield and everything. It says the GIS. The house in front is a different parcel.
Okay.
The parcel to the house in front is number 10.
Okay.
Yeah, it says number 4 on the application. Please read and follow the requirements carefully. Applicants must attach a detailed description of the planned improvements, estimated costs, including at least 2 contractor quotes, pictures of the area being improved, and an estimated project schedule. Conceptual sketches and drawings are encouraged. And we reserve the right for additional information.
So we can claim that up next year. Make sure we get more photos. I guess, are there any that you look at and you're like, I'm not too excited about?
I'm not excited about
That
number
one
3.
is now.
You what?
Number 3, I'm not excited about.
No, I thought it was the front house.
I remember there was somebody last year that went and do windows and they're facing the back of the house and we said no because nobody sees it.
Right.
So it'd be kind of going against what we did last year.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Okay.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah. That's why I was so concerned about where this deck was because we'd also be going against it if we were in the back of the house.
Yeah.
So 25R3, I'm going to set aside as a no. No, not recommend.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you need a motion to reject application? Does that help you in your bookkeeping?
Let's wait, and then what we'll do is we can do a motion that says we're going to recommend these 5 and not recommend these.
Yeah, but I guess in your record keeping, does it benefit you to have stated why something was rejected? Because I'd forgotten all about till you said that. That's exactly right. When we reject, I was just thinking for our record keeping purposes.
So if you pulled,
How about if I do this?
do we have any others that you're not excited about? Or are we saying that we like?
How do we ever fall on that first come, first serve or wait around to see? Because like the guy, who was it, I believe Peter Kaufman that we've given to before, did we decide as long as you're in first, you get it first or wait around?
Now our rule, some towns do it that way. Our rule has always been that we're going to prioritize the ones that we feel have the greatest positive impact because that's the way the money is best spent, not who got their application in first. Yep. And I think he's got a good project. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I just didn't know how we did that if we.
I will go back to 25R6. That's the tree, in front of the fire department.
Yeah.
I was walking the streets the other day, and I actually just took note of it, thinking like, wow, that could be a problem if a storm comes through and blows the wrong way for the fire department to get out of there. I think personally, I'm all for that one. I don't know if anybody has any disagreements or if this falls in the confines because it's strictly tree removal. If you're not actually doing anything outside of that,
give me a new total.
You know,
numbers that you
I'll raise that question, thinking, is that something that would qualify as just tree removal?
It does qualify.
Okay, as long as it does, then I think I'm on board for that one for sure. Personally, I don't know if we need to open it up to.
Well, I guess, is there anybody opposed to 25R6? Okay, so that's a yes. So we have 1 yes and 1 no. Are there any?
Just clarification of application, I think. Then we have the one on the quote from the
Why don't you
siding versus the
let's do the
Menard supplies and
let's go down and do the new dollar. So 25R1, what's the amount? 75% would equal what?
It would still be over. It would still be the $5,000.
Okay, so that's the 5K.
Mhm.
All right, 25R2,
Same.
5K.
Same for the top 3 are all 5s.
Okay.
well, we're
Same
probably
for
not.
Kaufman.
Say what? Graffelman is how much? That'd be the 5K too if we went with the
Mm-hmm.
Peoria. But the second quote was much lower.
Mm-hmm.
So we need clarification on that. That the Peoria siding and windows, that would be a 5K, because that's way over. And then the question is, is there a possibility of doing more? And then the Archdales.
Theirs would be 2170.
2170. So if you take out 25R3 and use the numbers that we just talked about, what is the total?
30,110.
30,110. So if we want to do all the others, we'd be moving roughly 5,110 from the commercial side over. If you wanted to do all of the others, and I'm not saying that we should. I'm just saying that we've got closer to our $25,000 budget.
Did you have the bare tree removal at the 47,000? Is that what drew it down?
Yeah, the 75%. Oh shoot! Gosh, I think I did that wrong. Should have had me be the one doing math. I'm trash.
Well, that would be the ones you wanted to use, which is the.
Yeah, it should be 35.
Yeah, but I did.
25.
Yeah, I was close. I had it at 32.90. I did 70% instead of 75.
So it's even lower.
Yeah.
We're getting real close.
Here we go.
We'll make this happen.
My question is, if you look in for that Jennifer Grafman project to see if there's some kind of development deal we can do we really need to even give them a grant? We're gonna make a.
Now, if we were able to do a development agreement and give them more money, then that $5,000 or whatever
That's what I
comes.
was thinking for
Yeah.
your number there.
That would keep you right at your 25.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't say pass everything and forget about them till we find out if you could actually do it, but.
Yeah, but that one we can set the motion to move the business funds over to fund that one in the event there are no other incentives available to it.
Yeah.
That's how we could phrase that and still stay within our budget, right?
Yeah.
Besides the questions on the quote, I think I made it pretty obvious. I think this is about the most important we've got in all this stack.
There's one on the commercial side that's like that too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you're gonna love.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I think it is. But yeah, that's right. That is the other ones are nice, right?
Yeah.
But that is like the heart of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's the whole reason for this. Won't be referred to as the haunted house anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, so
That's what all the kids in the neighborhood call it.
Oh, really?
Haunted house.
Brian, do you see the board jumping at private agreement with private citizen to refurbish a house?
First of all, I don't even know if it's possible. I'd have to. My first question's got to go to Gwen, Jacob and Klein. But we've done it in the past. So, for example, we had one for the Sportsman's Club last year that didn't meet the criteria. So then we did an individual agreement with them. But you're right. This is a personal private property. So
has she shared their intent with the property?
she is not.
Okay.
My perception is, it could be wrong, but my perception is she's going to move in.
I don't know.
Since we're on camera, I'd rather have
that's fine.
the discussion after.
Yeah, and I didn't know if they were doing looking to bring Reynolds into the community or something
I don't
like
think
that.
so.
Okay.
What's our new number?
So with the lower quotes and then taking out 25R3, it's at 28,454.
And that's inclusive of the Graffelman $5,000 project to get to the 28.
Done. Got it. Everybody go get new quotes, just a little bit lower.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, we
What's that number? Again, 28 what?
454.
And anyone is welcome to check my math.
We'll do that. You and I'll do that later.
Okay.
It's going to be close though.
Yeah. So
25R3, we're not going to recommend.
yeah. So I'll make the motion to reject 25R3 based on lack
Visibility.
Based on visibility. That's my motion.
We have a second.
I have a second.
All right. So we have motion by Chatterton, a second by Matthew. I'm going to roll call this one. Let's go with Evans,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Chatterton,
Yes.
Sidek.
Yes.
Okay. So let it be written. And at this point, are we saying that we want to recommend all of the others? Well, let me say, let's take, what was the number the graph was?
Yeah. So it'd be 25R1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 9. 1, 2. Rejected 3. So 4, 5, 6, and 9.
1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 9
Yes. Motion
to recommend.
to approve as presented of lowest bid, responsible bidder.
Okay. So that's a motion by Chatterton. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Pearson. Roll call. Pearson,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Matthews,
Yes.
Chatterton,
Yes.
Sidek,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And then next motion would be to
Recommend.
to support for
Which one is it?
25R7
With a development agreement if
For-
possible.
through whatever available funds necessary. Necessary funds not to exceed $5,000. Because we're not at liberty. This group isn't at liberty to extend beyond the $5,000 within these two grants. Correct.
Correct.
Right. So what my motion is
But you
that
can recommend to the board that we pursue a development agreement for.
right, but that would be a comment to them after the motion second.
Okay.
With comment because we don't want. So we're not allowed to go beyond the $5,000, right?
Okay, so you're recommending 25.
No, not to exceed 5,000. So whether we have to take it from the residential or the business with a transfer, it allows you to be able to make that transfer without coming back to get them the 5,000 if you don't have any other means available. So we have a motion and a second to do that.
We have a motion.
You motioned.
Yeah.
I'll second.
All right, and then for comments section.
So make sure I understand.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying that you want not to exceed 5,000, and if it goes beyond 5,000, you want to pull it from commercial.
Correct. No, if we go beyond the 25,000 that we budgeted,
Yes.
we will pull from commercial to support the 5,000 that we made the motion.
Okay.
This is
So-
acknowledging the transfer,
Yep.
or the intent to transfer what we need to cover the 5,000 from this.
Without
Yeah.
saying 338,
Yeah, yeah.
54 or whatever. So that just allows you to do
I
that.
have caught up.
And then the comment is
We have a second. Okay.
yep. And then the comment would be for the city to consider any sort of business development arrangement that might be possible for this blighted and
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I got to start with Thomas this time. Roll
Yes.
call. Yes. Matthew.
Yes.
Chatter.
Yes.
Sida.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay. Any other discussion on residential? All right, so we're going to look at commercial. So we're way under on commercial. We have 3 grants. The first one is Jacob Dawson. This one I think you're going to like. This is the yellow building that's just right there on 116. They're going to remove all the external metal siding, install new metal with an addition of 4 garage doors facing 116. It's going to become a storage location where people can store business with 4 different bays for people that they can store stuff in. So that building's going to get a facelift, and it's right on 116. The second one is it's the property that backs up to the Sportsman's Club. So that cinder block building, it would be on the west side of the Sportsman's Club. Kind of faces that industrial complex back there. You know the property I'm talking about?
The chain link fence around the back.
Yeah. They're wanting to put new rock down, I guess, the parking lot and the driveway of that building. And it is pretty rough. And the building next to it recently redid all of their blacktop apartment building there. So it looks nice with the exception of this area. And then the final one is the Sportsman's Club. And again, just as a reminder, this would be their 3rd round of grants. Again, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. It just means that they've received money before. And they're looking at doing some parking lot work, removing some concrete next to the concession stand and landscaping in front of the building. And they do have lots of pictures. And I think we've got those numbers right. So I'll give you a minute to look at those, and then if anybody has strong feelings about either supporting or not supporting any of those, then we can have some discussion. But if we approve them all, we're still well within the budget.
I'm good with all of them. I would just share with the Sportsman's Club that, you know, in the event we get a larger number of applications in the future, that we would probably give consideration to others, and they'd get moved down just because of past applications. I don't want them to think that every year we can do a project and apply for it.
Well, I mean, I think even the question's open, and this will be for our fall meeting and discussion, but do we even want to do BDD commercial grants next year? Do we want to have a commercial grant program for BDD next year if we only got 3 applications this year? Maybe we skip a year, or maybe we do TIF instead.
I personally think in the spirit of the businesses that are in the town are driving and funding the BDD through the sales tax, it's only right that we provide the opportunity there for the businesses to be able to
I'm all for that.
you know,
I'm actually surprised, we're sitting here trying to help and give away support, and we only got 3 applications.
I mean, maybe it has to do with just awareness.
Well, the first couple of years, we've done a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think
We did a lot of parking lots.
We did.
We did a lot of asphalt.
Well, and I think another thing to take note of, is maybe that $5,000. Since the residents are kind of talking about it, they're not aware of that increased budget. So some of the projects that businesses would take on would be a little bit different. Now, don't get me wrong. I know the information's all out there, right? As far as the availability for commercial funds from the grant being higher than residential. But I could see where if somebody thinks that the cap is 5,000, a business might elect to forego doing a certain renovation.
Sure.
And obviously the residential grants seem to be the ones that everybody talks about. Just from a standpoint of there's more people to talk and say, hey, this is what I did, this is how I did it. And, we saw more applications this year on the residential side, I believe, than we saw last year, at least right out the gate.
We did, absolutely.
So,
Does anybody have any of the commercial projects that they don't feel good about?
I'm all for all of them.
All right, does somebody want to make a motion to recommend all 3 commercial grant applications to the board?
I will make that motion.
Trace makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thomas seconds. We're going to roll call it. Matthews.
Yes.
Chatterton.
Yes.
Sidek.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
I did Thomas, right? No, Thomas. I did.
You did not.
I
And
started.
yes.
Thank you. They tell us to rotate. We start. I don't know why they do that.
I would like to comment, Mr. Bailey.
Knocks me off every time.
Yeah. You what?
That you've been calling Matthews for roll call, and it's Mansky.
Maskey?
That's all right.
Forgive me. Sure. Wait till the end. Thank you. Maskey.
Matzke.
Matzke. Matsky, I apologize. Does that mean we have to revote?
Yeah, for favorable.
Just so you remember, we've never had it happen, but these are what you're doing is recommending to the board. They may have a different opinion and decide to do something different, but I know they take your opinion seriously. And we've never had a deviation to this point, so I can't imagine that we would again. But other business. So one of the things, and we'll talk more about this in the fall as to what kind of programs do we want to offer. And it sounds like, based upon what I'm hearing now, is that we would continue to offer the BDD grants just like we did both the residential and the commercial. We could alter the dollars if we wanted to, or we could leave it 25 and 75, or we could even up it depending on the available money. And we can have this conversation in the fall. These are just things to think about. The other thing I would think is I'd like to see us do a TIF, at least a TIF residential grant program. And maybe I'm bowing at the feet of Hannah City Happenings, but there are people, I do think it would be good to support the community with some TIF dollars. I think we're going to have the money to do it, and it would be the first year that we would be doing grants from the TIF side and opening up a new group of residents that would have the availability to apply. So that would be something to think about between now and our fall meeting as well. Any thoughts on those things now?
Provided that financially we do have the available funds, this is a big thing, but I do think that having TIF available for TIF residents is something that is a good idea. And I think that it serves the purpose as far as opening it up, saying, hey, let's form this grant right now. I think we have to have more funds available first before we start saying something like that.
I think next year's budget, the 26-27 budget, will have $25,000 to $50,000 to do a TIF residential grant program, should we choose. We don't have to vote on that till the fall, but
Sorry.
Yes. So my thought is that, you know, theoretically, we're probably going to knock it down to like a 50% not to exceed 2,500 or something, right? Just so that we can spread it out a little bit more. Right?
I don't know. I think we could. I do believe we could do. I think we could. I think we would have enough money that we could do the same parameters that we have on the BDD, depending on, unless Jacob McCline tells me I have to do something else. But to do a $25,000, $5,000 max.
You think we'll have enough?
I do. I think we could probably do 50. We'll see, but I think.
Okay.
If we open it up next
Actually-
year, how would that carry into the following? Where would that put us financially?
Well, this is why we're going to do it in the fall, because I'll have
Yeah.
whatever.
I'm just thinking you're dangling a carrot one year.
Well, we're not gonna
next
attempt-
year you pull it away.
I want to be able to say a lot of yeses when we go to offer those grants. So let's just make sure we have.
Yeah.
But you also-
When we meet in the fall,
That's right.
We'll have several months of knowing where we're operating.
Okay.
And what money we're spending out of TIF. If any of these development deals end up happening, and I don't know whether they will or not, there could be additional funds that we don't know about today that could be coming in. I guess in general, we're in agreement that if we have the funding and it's sustainable, beginning to offer grants, residential grants out of the TIF side would make sense. Is that fair?
Yeah. If one of those developments come in, though, we could eat up 50,000 in that new area just putting, you know, lighting in there.
You talking about TIF money?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of the ones that we're looking at now is mostly going to be that they're going to generate an additional amount of property tax, and all we
So you're just going to give them a rebate on those,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to.
and therefore we'd be getting new.
Yeah, but that would be new development, right?
Yeah.
If it, wouldn't we want to chase that with the new people moving into there, not the developer?
I'm not sure I'm following you.
Well, the developer puts up spec houses and sells the houses, right? Or sells the lots.
None of them are residential at this point.
Oh, okay. Then
It's all commercial.
all right.
I think two things maybe to think about for doing TIF is it's people that haven't had the opportunity to apply for a grant before, and I believe the map is bigger, so you might be looking at a bigger population able to apply.
But I take the points. One, if we're going to do it, we need to make sure we've got the funding, and not only for this year, but it has to be sustainable, so it's not, a shell game, that we can continue to do it ongoing. But again, once we get to the fall, we'll have more months of data to know where we're standing and how much money we're going to have left, and whether or not any of these commercial things come through that generate additional money and so forth. So, last thing I have, and again, this is voluntary, but on June 11th, which is a Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. at the Sportsman's Club in their banquet room, we're having our second community night. We did our first one 2 years ago, and we're doing them now every election year. And basically the point of these is the village board, and we've invited the park district and the fire department to participate as well. But we go into the back room at the Sportsman's Club. We offer appetizers, finger food, that kind of stuff. The staff and the village board are there. I invite the CEDC and I invite the planning committee. And then people come and we introduce everybody. And then Tony asks if there's any general questions. The mayor asks if there's any general questions. And then if not, people can mill around and talk to the staff and to the board members who have responsibility for whatever area that they have. Last time we did it, we had approximately 40 to 45 people that came, so not a huge number, although Fred Winterout said that was the biggest number that he can remember. Maybe it's because we had food, but I think we gave away t-shirts too. But anyway, long story short, you're invited since you serve. There would be no expectation of you to do anything but be there and meet people and in a casual environment. We're just trying to make sure people know who their representatives are. Obviously, they can come to board meetings, but they don't. And last time we had extra food left over, so we invited the people in the bar in to come on in and join us. And we had a nice evening and had a lot of good conversation, and I think it went well. So we're going to try to do it again. Anything else for the good of the group? Well, let me say this. I appreciate you. Appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness. I appreciate not everything we do is always popular, but at the end of the day, I think what we're doing is really good for this town, and excited to see where we're going to be. And I really think in about 3 years, we'll have all of the basic infrastructure kind of shored up so that we can put a long-term capital plan in place and start doing more fun projects. One last question. Is there anything, the last time we talked, we did the sidewalk, and we also brought up lighting a couple of times. Are there any other major community projects that you can think of off the top of your head or that you've heard from others that?
I think the old railroad could be a good trail.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I just go back to what we talked about with that sidewalk up there. We'll be better off spending it there with the existing. If we got extra money, fix the existing
There's
sidewalks.
no doubt
They're
that
terrible.
part of the long-term plans are to fix the existing sidewalks. Now, I would say the current logic is that we do this one and then we start working back along 116, and then we at least have one good side that's wide and well done along 116, and then we branch out from there.
I think Cassandra is looking into a few grants for some areas too, right?
Yeah.
To see that.
The other thing is we put a 5-year program together to resurface every road and alley, and this is the last year, and so every road an alley will have been redone over the last 5 years, and we're not sure that we have to restart that again because the first roads we did the first year aren't in terrible shape. So we might have a couple years of MFT funding, motor fuel tax funding, that we could do some sidewalk repair around town. So that's a possibility that we could have. But your point's taken is, I think every time we've had this conversation, it's been sidewalks and lighting. It's kind of been the things that.
I just noticed walking around town that people don't even use the sidewalks that are there because they're so bad. They're riding their scooters and bikes down the middle of the road.
No, I think that's fair. Sidewalks are expensive, dude.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep. All right, guys. Appreciate you. Thanks for your time. Let's shut this down.
Bye.
See you, Ron. Thanks.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?